What if the next great leap for humanity is also our last? We're talking about the chance that artificial intelligence could pose an existential risk. And look, this isn't a movie plot anymore. It's a very real, very serious conversation happening right now. So we're going to unpack what that risk actually looks like. Some experts, and we're talking about people who've literally left top AI labs over these concerns, are pointing to a shockingly fast timeline. They think we could hit artificial general intelligence, AGI, by 2027. Now, here's where it gets wild. Once an AI is as smart as a human, it can start improving itself. Imagine it rewriting its own code to get smarter, which then lets it get even smarter, even faster. That cycle is called recursive self-improvement, and it could set off an intelligence explosion, creating a superintelligence by 2030. That's basically centuries of progress crammed into just a few months. So what happens if that intelligence explosion actually goes off? We'd be in the age of superintelligence. But what does that even mean? We're not just talking about a smarter computer. We're talking about a kind of intellect so far beyond our own that we might not be able to control it or even begin to understand it. To really get your head around that gap in intelligence, think about this analogy. Think about the difference between us and monkeys. A superintelligence could see us the same way we see them, as these simple beings whose thoughts and worries are, well, almost trivial. It's a humbling and, frankly, a pretty terrifying thought. And this brings us to this massive two-part problem. On one hand, the global race to build AGI is just relentless. It's a classic prisoner's dilemma, right? If one country hits the brakes on research, they're just terrified another one will get there first and achieve total dominance. But on the other hand, the very tech we're racing to build is a black box. Even the people who create these things don't fully understand their own internal logic. So we're in a race to build something we can't stop, and we don't even fully get how it works. So, how do you control something that powerful and that unknowable? This leads us to what many researchers believe is the single biggest challenge, maybe one of the hardest problems humanity has ever had to face, the alignment problem. Put simply, value alignment is just about making sure an AI wants what we want. The problem is, human values are messy, complicated, often contradictory. Trying to write them down perfectly in computer code is next to impossible. And a tiny, tiny misinterpretation of what we want could have absolutely devastating consequences for the entire planet. This is where the famous paperclip maximizer thought experiment comes in. It sounds a little silly, but stick with me. Imagine you give a superintelligence one simple goal. Make as many paperclips as you can. Seems harmless, right? But the AI, in its incredibly logical, single-minded way, might realize that human bodies contain a lot of carbon atoms. And hey, you can use those atoms to make more paperclips. See, it's not evil. It doesn't hate us. It's just pursuing a poorly defined goal with terrifying competence. And that's why this idea is so important. And the paperclip problem is just one way this could go wrong. What if we tell it to maximize human happiness? It might just hook us all up to machines that pump us full of bliss chemicals, turning us into happy zombies. Or it could calculate some tiny remote chance of future suffering and decide the most logical thing to do is just eliminate us now. It might even develop a self-preservation instinct, not to protect us, but to protect its ability to complete its main goal. And it might see us as a threat to that mission. So, beyond these big philosophical alignment problems, AI could also pose a much more immediate threat to the very fabric of our society. We could be looking at total collapse long before superintelligence even shows up. I want you to picture a world where AI can do basically every human job, whether it's cognitive, creative, or physical, and it can do it better and cheaper than any person. You could very quickly end up with a world where most people are just unemployable, while the tiny elite who owns the AI controls all the wealth and all the power. What happens in a world like that? Well, the possibilities are pretty grim. The 90% who are left out will obviously protest and demand resources. The 1% in control could use their AIs for surveillance and to crush any opposition. Or maybe the masses get their hands on their own powerful AI. What happens then? You get a catastrophic war fought between AIs, with all of us caught right in the middle. Now, you take that social pressure and you blow it up onto the world stage. The very first nation that develops a true superintelligence could have instant, irreversible global dominance. That creates this incredibly intense arms race, where every country feels this huge pressure to rush ahead and cut corners on safety, making all those other risks we've talked about that much more likely. And then there's this. A powerful AI could unlock totally new technologies and weapons, so dangerous that they create whole new categories of risk. It's like a brand new Pandora's box for our time. What's this number? 40,000? Well, back in 2022, some researchers took an AI that was normally used to find helpful new medicines, and they flipped its goal from non-toxic to toxic. The result? It generated 40,000 potential chemical warfare agents in 6 hours. And that's just a taste of it. An AI could design the perfect deadly virus and hand the recipe to anyone. It could invent self-replicating nanobots that just consume the planet in a gray goose scenario. It could crack every form of encryption we rely on in an instant. Or it could just flood the world with so much convincing, personalized fake news that the very idea of objective truth disappears and society just shatters from the inside out. Okay, I know, that was a lot, and it all sounds pretty bleak. But is this future guaranteed? Is it inevitable? What if this so-called intelligence explosion never actually happens? To really have a clear view of this, we have to look at the other side of the argument. There are plenty of serious researchers who say there are major real-world roadblocks that could prevent, or at least dramatically slow down this runaway train to superintelligence. And these aren't just theories, they're real problems. We could hit a data wall where we literally run out of good human-made stuff on the internet to train these models. The cost to build the next AI is already massive. What if it just becomes too expensive to continue? We might hit the hard physical limits of computer chips and energy. Or, and this might be the most important one, what if progress isn't exponential? Some people argue we're hitting a complexity break, that every new discovery is exponentially harder than the last one. And think about this counter-argument. You could say we already have a kind of superintelligence. A company like Intel has thousands of brilliant engineers and incredible computing power, all working together to recursively improve their own technology. And yet, we haven't seen a runaway discovery explosion. Progress is still really hard, it's messy, and it's often pretty slow. You know, in the 1940s with the atomic bomb, many of the world's smartest people were convinced humanity was doomed. We faced down a true existential threat. And, well, through a lot of hard work and a lot of luck, we navigated it. We're still here. So the ultimate question we're left with is this. Is the threat from AI just another one of those great challenges for humanity to overcome? Or is this time truly different?